first of all, we are back, boys. We're back for week 2, episode number 2. After a decent wee response, wanted to say thanks to everybody that shared the post for the first episode and listened and spread the word to it. We all appreciate it. It was, like I say, it was a great response. So it made us feel confident to kind of do another episode. And obviously, the episode this week is clearly going to be focused on Scotland because we're in the fucking Euros for Euro 2021. Get in. Which obviously for me, Greg, Matthew, and Scott has never happened in our lifetime. So that's why I kind of wanted to get you on, Uncle Glyn. Appreciate you coming on because you've lived through a time where Scotland were fairly successful in terms of getting to major tournaments anyway, and also probably having some of, if not the best players in the world. So just wanted to get you on and kind of get your perspective on it. So appreciate you joining us.
Good stuff.
No worries. So first of all, the game, guys. I mean, what do we think about it? Matthew, I'll start with you again. What did you think about the game in general in terms of how Scotland went? How Scotland played, how you think it went? Was it what you expected? What was it not? Like, what were your initial thoughts?
I thought from the start that the game was gonna be a tight game when I seen the fixture, and I knew it was gonna be a tight game. I thought in the first half they gave us way too much respect. It was really strange to see Scotland have so much of the ball and be so dominant. I thought with the players that they've got in the team that it would actually be the other way around, where especially with them being at home as well, as they'd have most of the ball and we'd be sitting in. But I thought in the first half they just sat off, and I don't know if they maybe had that one chance which just went past the post, and I think that was it. So I thought we were good. My only concern was when we were 1-0 up and the subs we made I thought were quite strange. I thought there could have been a point where Scotland should have had a little bit more about them and maybe tried to kill the game off. I think the subs we made were quite strange, and it seemed to let them get into the game that little bit more, and then obviously they got the equaliser in the last minute, which was absolutely devastating. And then extra time, I was looking at it saying, this has got penalties written all over it. I don't think we're going to create anything, and I don't think they're going to create much either, and they didn't. And luckily, penalties, I had a good feeling that we'd actually... My prediction on the last podcast was penalties, was it not?
It was, mate.
Thank you very much. So that's why I'm the fans' favourite. So I think, I just think that I thought it was excellent. We grinded out a result. I was impressed. I was.
Not only that, you put a bet on it too, mate. Won some money.
I did indeed.
A wee double bet. What did you have? Scotland to win on pens and Ryan Christie's first goal.
Two separate bets. Christie first goal scorer, got it right, Jock, and us to win on penalties, got it right, Shock. So money in the bank, easy money.
You're a jammy bastard, mate. What'd you say, Scotty?
Please gamble responsibly.
Gamble responsibly, absolutely. I think you did well to sum up there, Matthew. Uncle Glyn, what was your thoughts on it? Did you think much in the same?
Much the same. Obviously, going into a game like this, and given all the disappointments that we always go, we dare to dream of this, always ends in glorious failure, as if we're past World Cups. It's always glorious failure or just absolutely miserable. And I agree with Matthew. I think we maybe all will. That I thought Scotland were really, really dominant. And after the first half, I thought, things are going good here. And then when Christie scored, I thought, there's no way Serbia are going to get back into this. Then when the substitutions were made, I thought, I'd have kept a tired John McGinn. Lyndon Dykes looked a bit tired, but I thought as soon as they took them off and they put, who was it? Was it Patterson and McBurney on?
Yeah.
I thought, well, they're not getting closed down. Let's give Serbia the ball and see out the last 15. And you just knew, being a Scotland fan, you just knew the equaliser's coming. It's coming, and through extra time, hang on, take the penalties. And of course, we're undefeated in penalty shootouts, so no problem. Yeah, but Matthew's summing up of the game was spot on. Was spot on. I agree with that. I think there's nobody could really disagree and say that we didn't deserve to win. We did win that game. Disappointed in Serbia, but we're there. That's all that counts.
We're there. That is all that matters. What about you, Greggy and Scotty? Anything different or much in the same?
Pretty much the same, to be fair, for me. I would say, particularly like the first 80 minutes was, I think I mentioned to you boys, was probably the best I've seen Scotland play. Just about. Obviously, then a couple of subs. But the one thing I would like to quickly say is, Ollie McBurney takes some pelters, and to be fair, what obviously I think we all discussed wasn't maybe great when he came on.
Yeah.
But to be fair to the boy, imagine if he stood up to take like the third or fourth penalty, slots it away. Imagine the absolute pelters he would have got on Twitter and whatnot, as we were talking last week. If he's came on, probably underperformed, and then missed a penalty as well. So to be fair, you've got to give the boy credit for the size of his stones at the end of the day to get up there and take a pen, because I think he was getting some grief on Twitter, and probably some parts of it, I know people say like, what, Sheffield United paid 20 million for the boy, but which is obviously a lot of money, but at the end of the day, he had it in him to go up there and take a penalty. So I think fair play to him. But I think as soon as, to be fair, when he came on, it just wasn't the same. It's like Lyndon Dykes wins every header. Because let's be honest, that was all Scotland's game plan, was pretty much knock it up top to Lyndon Dykes, let him try and win some headers. And then it was pretty much the same game plan when Ollie McBurney came on, and obviously getting the ball volleyed at your head for 85 minutes like Lyndon Dykes, they probably did take out of him. But as I say, I think he struggled a wee bit when he came on, but I wanted to give him a wee mention for taking that penalty, because I think it's fair play to the kid. That's
fair. Scotty, what do you think?
I agree with Greg. Fair play to McBurney. Unbelievable to come and take the penalty. But I'll happily sit in the stands at Wembley with him as long as he does not get on that fucking pitch. Horrendous football.
Yeah, I think I agree with what you said, Greg, and I'm not disputing that. And none of us have been in that situation in a game like that where he's got up to do it. But my thing is just that, for me, as again, from coaching for the last 10 years, albeit youth level, but I even watched the Brian Clough documentary today, the Believer documentary, and there's the thing all the Nottingham Forest players kept saying, which I think is so simple, is that every game, he said, as long as you just try your hardest, I don't really care what happens. And I just think that sometimes for me, McBurney doesn't look like he's putting in the work rate off the ball. There's obviously all those stories about him that apparently made that joke to someone after a Sheffield United game, John Fleck or something, about not wanting to travel up to play for Scotland. So maybe I've got kind of those goggles on, but part of me is just like, all I care about, especially for your country, you can be pish, you can have a bad touch, you can not be very good. And I don't think he gets a lot of help. I don't think the style suits him. Don't get me wrong. But, for that goal, that corner, there's a moment where he could stop the ball before it gets played forward, before it goes out for the corner. And I just think he could do with putting a little bit more work rate off the ball.
I probably agree with that. He needs to pull his socks up as well. It does my head in.
Yeah, I thought the lad at the back did absolutely brilliantly. Declan Gallagher, I thought he was absolutely awesome as well. I thought he was superb.
And fair play to Stevie Clark, because he's not got superheroes on that pitch. He's got bang average footballers. He's taken them from the likes of Kilmarnock, well, he's taken that team to the Euros without the world class players he's had before.
When you look at our past teams, and you mentioned in the wee itinerary there, talking about heroes and legends and all the rest of it. You don't have any of these guys, Mark, just now. Even they might be heroes. Will any of them ever go on to be legends? Only time will tell with that. Maybe they will.
Let's get to the end of the podcast there, G-Man. What is?
I like that. I think as well, one big thing is, with everything that's going on in the world right now for COVID, obviously, it's only for Scotland this, but it's a great win. You can see on social media how positive people were about the game, and you could tell it definitely gave people a good time, something to celebrate in times where there's literally nothing to celebrate. So it was huge. It was huge for the nation. It's massive. And the big thing I kind of wanted to talk about today was, it's all fantastic. We're going to the Euros. Honestly, you guys can disagree with me if you think otherwise, but let's go there, let's enjoy it. Of course, we want to go there and win. I don't think anyone has massively high expectations that we're going to do anything spectacular. But I think right now this is a big chance for Scotland as a nation in terms of football to start to really look to improve on, and over the next 10 years, start to make this into a consistent thing. And what I mean by that is I think you're going to have so many young kids that are going to be so buzzing off of that, and a dream is going to be, I want to play for Scotland and I want to get there. And we need to definitely do more, which has been a topic in Scotland for years, about how do we consistently keep creating, decent Scottish players. So obviously they go out and have good careers as a club, but also so we can have a decent national team. So I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on, what do you think about that? I think we just need to build our own DNA and kind of go from there. But what do you guys think about that?
You won't get a better opportunity than this, will you? You've got role models and people to aspire to for kids to grow up wanting to be. It doesn't matter if they may not be the greatest football team, but they're people to look up to and be inspired by.
Yeah, definitely. The problem I think we do have is that everything that we seem to do always is short term. Great, we've qualified for the Euros. Let's go and see what we can do. As a supporter, you dare to dream. Well, I've already got us through the knockout stages looking at the fixtures. That's what you are when you're watching Scotland or your team. What's our path to the knockout stages? We've got short-term goals in Scotland. We always have had, and there is a chance to change. I think the DNA, is changing a wee bit, especially in youth football and kids football. We're starting to see the benefits slowly through the 17s and 19s. Unfortunately, the 21s today got beat 1-0 and didn't qualify. Because if they got through today, that would have been the first time that both the 21s and the senior team had qualified for major tournaments since 1996 and 1998, respectively. So we're certainly going the right direction with the right type of footballers. But this, as Scott said, this is a great opportunity for a new generation to think, we're finally at a major tournament and it's massive. But will we build on that though? That's the big question, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
How do you build on that? Right.
I mean, for me personally, I think it starts right at the youth level. Like, you have to start to get the coaching for the young kids all the way through up to the academies to be a certain DNA, a certain style. Because if you look at countries like Spain, for example, or Brazil, they always play the same way, and sometimes they're not successful with it and other times they are. But what they do is they stick with it, and success comes and goes. And I think as long as you stick with a plan and you don't deviate from it and you adapt it when you need to, then that's the way forward. And I was kind of thinking about this, and there's no, like, what is the short and long term plan? And in my opinion, from being a youth coach for the last 8 to 10 years, is that it doesn't matter if you want to play quote unquote tiki-taka football, Pep Guardiola football, or you're going to be a little bit more direct and that's how you're going to play. Either way, as long as you have a DNA and a style and you stick with that, then it doesn't really matter how you do it. It doesn't always need to be pretty. It doesn't always need to be beautiful. And like I said last week, I think these days there's sometimes a bit of football snobbery on, well, everyone needs to open up and play. And I prefer that as a coach and as a fan of football. But I just think that you just pick what you want to do and you plan for it short term and you plan for it long term and you stick with it. And it needs to be for a decent amount of time. It needs to be for 8 to 10 years for when the next generation comes through, and you keep continuing to build off that.
Well, as you say, in terms of short term, Stevie Clarke, as much grief that he gets, and I know Scotty loves to give him grief, but like, he spotted that at the moment we can go out there and win games 1-0, and that's what he sets us up to do, and it's allowed us to qualify for the first tournament in 22 years. So surely, in terms of short-term goals, he definitely deserves some praise in terms of going out there, spotting that, not listening to Scott Gillis, who wants to knock the ball about lovely, and
He's a Rangers supporter.
and like, because let's be honest, at the moment Scotland probably don't have that much up top in terms of going and getting goals. We're never going to go and score like your Rangers, to be fair. We're never going to go and score 5 or 6 goals in a game, are we? So him shutting up shop like that and taking 1-0 wins, fair enough, it might not always be the most entertaining to watch, but to be honest, I couldn't really give a shit if it's entertaining or not, as long as we get to go to a tournament.
Yeah, I would like to say when Clark first came in and this 3-5-2 was implemented and it was kind of switched about a bit. I think the past 2 or 3 games I've looked at and I've went, it's kind of the only time apart from Antonio Conte's Chelsea where I've actually been a fan of a 3-5-2. And I look at it and I see a bunch of guys that are bought into the idea and are enjoying themselves. And when we talk about the culture and the identity of Scotland, what I see personally is first and foremost, do the basics. And second of all, keep it tight at the back. And I think Steve Clarke has came in and done that. And I think that's why we're in the Euros, because international football is, that's what it is. You need to be tight at the back. You can't concede a lot of goals. You can't be open. And I think with us being Scotland and being the underdogs, I think it suits us. And I think that's why we've personally had success with it.
Yeah, it's interesting you're saying, talking about the DNA and what do we do longer term. I agree 100% with Bug's saying about, we just get there. Just get there. It's almost like we're the sticks in front of the carrot here. But because we are there now, we'll look at that, right? What do we do for the next generation, for the next 8-10 years? And just to go back, we were, Mike Mackey and I and Johnny Mack were at the Toulon tournament in 1995. Scotland played France. We got beat 2-0. Right, we got beat 2-0. We were speaking to French people a whole lot, and they said, "No, we've got the World Cup coming up in 1998. We are, for the last 8, 9, 10 years, we have got from Giroud, Auxerre, and all the rest of it. We have got a system. We are all buying into this system. We want to do really well in France '98. The rest is history. 5 of that under-21 team were in the France 1998 squad." But in the Scotland under-21 team that time, I think one made it. So the development, as Josh said, the development's absolutely massive. Where we go going forward now, it's massive.
Well, I was watching Sky Sports News the other day, and Stephen Presley was on, and he made a point where Scotland need to have more people coming through, like the youth system. And I went on and I had a wee look at it, and out of that starting 11. You had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 players that all came through Scottish youth teams. So, which was interesting. You only had McTominay and Dykes that didn't come through a Scottish youth system. McTominay, Man United, and Dykes was in Australia and then did come to Scotland later, but he started in Australia. So, I actually found that quite interesting. I didn't realise it was that many.
Yeah, that's encouraging.
Yeah, so he made that point, and I thought, I'll check that out, and it was interesting that 9 of the 11 have all come through the youth system, which is obviously fantastic, and that's something you need to continue to build off. And it's not going to be perfect. You're not going to have you might not have every single player be a Scottish person, but they're at least going to be, a decent level. Hopefully, if you can change how the youth system plays and what you do with the kids, and it's all about getting people on the same page. Obviously, Matthew, me and you have come from California, where we're used to the big kind of pay to play, and we've seen the pros and cons of that. But what do you think about bringing that on board in Scotland, or maybe a hybrid version of that? Because it's a lot of people that are volunteering their time to help kids out, and that's great. And I've been there, and we deeply appreciate it. But it's not what's going to help the national team as a whole get better. So I don't know what you think about that, Matthew. Obviously, we've witnessed the pay to play. What do you think?
I don't know. That's a really complex question. I think there's huge pros and cons to it, but there must be another way. Are you specifically talking about the coaches?
I'm just talking about what the system is in right now, because we all grew up doing it.
If it was, I wouldn't implement the American system of being a kid and having to pay to play the sport. I personally, I wouldn't have it. I think it's actually backwards. But I think the difficulty that we have is coaches and having money and funding to be able to have decent level coaches that are then working with these 10-year-olds or whatever it may be.
Yeah, it's fair. It's fair. It's a tough one because obviously with the money becomes greater resources, but we've seen also the flip side of it where, unfortunately, like anything, it becomes a business and you're taking away what the most important thing is, which is the love for the game for the kids. So it's a tough one because there has to be some sort of hybrid there where it can help people like myself and like you who at 16, 17 wanted to go into football and be youth coaches, but kind of had to go out with of Scotland to quote unquote make a living and make a career out of it. So I just think if there was an incentive there to at least make some sort of living from it, and it doesn't have to be a mass amount, but more than it is now, a lot of it's volunteer time, if anything, right? So I don't know what you think about Uncle Glyn, because that's a tough balance to find.
Yeah, it is a tough one, and culturally there's a world of difference between the States and Scotland, and even the UK. But when you can look, I think we'll start at the top. And when you look at, we've got one of the worst governing bodies in world soccer. That might sound controversial, but look, you just need to look at the track record of the SFA or the SPF, or however many governing bodies we've got. And really, even down to a qualifying game against Israel, they were refusing to actually give the Saturday off because no, we can't do that because the league's a priority. So until we've got a governing body at the top working its way and filtering its way down all the way through the youth systems and everything, then we're up against it anyway.
Yeah, I think the big thing you hit there was like a difference in culture. And that's a big thing I've noticed when I've come home for Christmas and stuff, and even just living here a little bit. And Scotty, I wanted to ask you about this because obviously you support Rangers too, but there's a big negativity, not just with the national team and the mindset of the Scottish culture, but with club teams. I mean, we spoke about social media the other week, and everyone has a right to their opinion. I've definitely done it a few times too. I'm trying to get better at it, but I feel like you have clubs are happier and more focused on their rivals or other teams' failures than they are just focusing on what their club are doing and how their club can get better.
Even towards individual players, some of the hatred from Rangers fans towards like Ryan Christie, Cal McGregor on Thursday night, like they're national heroes short term, and they're still getting abuse from fans in Scotland. It's like that culture needs to change. We all need to come together. Like, I think the national team's almost lost its pride a bit. Like, it used to be, Glenn, I'm guessing when back in the day, it was an honour to play for your country. People would give anything to play for Scotland. And now it seems almost club football's become too important. Some players are willing to miss a Scotland game. I know some of our friendlies and maybe not as important, but still, and a chance to represent your country, surely you take it. But it seems players don't want to these days. But
yeah, and I just mean more so as the fans though. Like, if you look at fans, they want to see. I feel like they're happier. They're very quick to jump on when a Rangers fails. If you're a Celtic fan, which I get, there's rivalries there for sure. Or Hibs fans with Rangers and Celtic, whatever. There seems to just be a big jump on other clubs when they fail, and rather than focusing on yourself. I don't know what you think about that, Uncle Glyn, obviously from being here all your life and being a Hearts fan. Has it always been like that? Or do you think it's got worse?
The parochial stuff with you following your club thing, and having been to the tournaments, having been fortunate enough to have been at tournaments with Scotland, it all changes when you get to that tournament. It doesn't matter if you're Celtic, Rangers, Hearts, Hibs, because the other thing as well, this is where football runs from Ayr to Airdrie and Queen's Park to Queen of the South. You're just a Scottish football fan, and that's why I hope to hell that we do get the chance to get spectators going. Even just head down to London for the banter, because honestly, it is one of the best things. There is a coming together. There's a coming together. All club sides, all all these prejudices are really, really put aside. I've yet in from Euro 96, Italia 90, France 98, there wasn't any chat at all of what team do you support? Oh, I'm a Hearts fan, I'm a Hibs fan, good on you, but we're Scotland fans. And that coming together. And to get that feeling once again that you guys have never experienced, it's the best feeling in the world. And it really, really, it does bring everybody together. And so that football is the religion, not Celtic, Rangers, Hearts, Hibs, Aberdeen or anybody. And that's why short term it is massive for the country that we'll all come together with that. Individually, yes, I'm a Rangers man, I don't like Christie, I'm a Celtic man, I don't like Kent, anything like that, or whatever, or Craig Gordon's and goals like that. All that goes out the window when you're actually when you're part of that Tartan army. You really are. It's all out the window, and that's what's great about it. That's what I'm looking forward to.
We've never experienced that, lads, have we? We don't know that. We don't know that coming together at our age group.
No, we've never had that.
Yeah, there's been so much apathy over the Scotland team for 22 years. We'll never do it. And until we were saying that, the ones who have seen it before said, until we get to that tournament, the younger ones won't really know what it's really like to be a Scotland fan. Of course, you're as passionate as we all are, but just to get to that tournament, but sometimes in the past, that's been good enough. But when I was growing up, we reached 74 World Cup, 78, 82, 86, 90 World Cup. It was a gimme. I was between the ages of 17 and 40. It was a tournament every 4 years with a couple of Euros thrown in. It was, and we took it for granted. We didn't really capitalise on that generation that we had.
G-Man, was it?
Because the ones caught up and taken over us.
G-Man, was it the 82 or the 86 World Cup that people in Scotland actually thought they'd go and win it?
No, 78.
Was that 78?
We were on the March Reality's army, yeah, because we beat England at Wembley, and they all had a big send off, and that was it. And it came crashing down. Alan McLeod was the manager. We had a fantastic team. We had the best midfield in the world with Rioch, Masson, and Hartford. You know, they were going to be legends. Then we got gubbed 3-1 by Peru, drew 1-1 with Iran, and then we got Archie Gamble's goal. And knocked out on goal difference for the third. That was the second successive. That was the second tournament. 74 knocked out in goal difference. 78 knocked out in goal difference. 82 knocked out in goal difference. Welcome to Scotland.
That definitely does sum Scotland up. I just think, for me personally, there's an opportunity here, not for now, but like I said, in the next decade, where Scotland not only just as a nation, but from a national team point of view, but even the club level that, doesn't get a lot of coverage on TV these days. People outside of Scotland only really tune into the Old Firm games. I think there's an opportunity to almost kind of like awake a wee sleeping giant here if you get things right and you start to build it from the ground up. I've obviously been away for the last 8 years, so I don't know exactly who's in charge and who does what. But I think one big thing that you need to do with that is you need to mix the old and get some new, young, fresh people with fresh ideas in there, mix them together. And like I said earlier, come up with a plan, whatever it is, and stick to it, because Scotland is known to be a massive football nation. People love coming up here for games and that. It's a great culture, but our game is kind of almost laughed and mocked upon by everyone else in the world from the outside looking in. That doesn't mean it's as bad as people say it is. I personally just think it's a different game of football. And when I watch the Scottish football games, there's part of it that I miss being a Liverpool fan in the English games, where there's a bit more of those hard tackling and that kind of street stuff that you don't get in a lot of other leagues. So I just think there's a chance to build Scotland up as a nation, again, club and national team, after this. Take advantage of this. Don't let it go away. Don't just let it be a one-off, and kind of go from there. And however you do it is fine. Just create your own DNA and go with it, personally.
I think I agree with that. I think another way that you can help that is, if you look at the likes of Hearts going down, that's not good for Scottish football whatsoever, because you need these clubs to push on and start pushing, you know, at the top of the Scottish Premier League or start pushing into Europe or whatever it may be, you need these clubs like Hearts, Aberdeen, Hibs and stuff to start bringing in players and start doing well. And I think that could really help as well.
Yeah, you do. You need. Look, Hibs fans, whoever it may be, especially that don't like Hearts, you need Hearts in the first division. You need Hearts up there. They're a big club. They've got a big kind of tradition as being a massive club in Scotland. And again, on a club level, you know, Hearts are another team, Uncle Glyn, that I think, again, massive club. If you could, you know, get the fans behind them and build something there as a, you know, as a club, you've got a really, really big team on your hands there. And people don't like going to Tynecastle anyway right now, with even with Hearts in the Championship. If you got people in there, you could make that place a very, very difficult place to go. 100%, I think.
Oh yeah, but and taking it even further, the training facilities as well out of the Orion and everywhere else, and other clubs have got that as well. We have to invest in our youth and be patient with it. I'm happy as a Hearts fan being in the Championship. Let's get more of our youth coming through, and let's get them up, because what we do need Scots coming through, young lads coming through, playing at the highest level. And sometimes they miss the boat. Andy Robertson, what was he? Queen's Park, Dundee United, Hull, Liverpool.
Yeah.
There's more of those out there. Let's not lose them. Let's nurture them. Let's develop them. There's a lot more there. Let's not lose them to the system too early. And by sometimes I mean, let's not let Celtic and Rangers take the young guys that you've got at your club away to sit in reserves, you know, because it's a massive leap for them. You've far better taking a sideways down, going into the Championship in England and see what happens up there. And that's not a knock on Celtic or Rangers, by the way. It's not meant as such. It's just that's a fact. Let's keep them playing football.
No, I agree, Uncle. And there's, out of those 9 that I said that came through a youth academy, 6 of them come from Celtic. I mean, and understandably, they have been, unfortunately, with Rangers going away. They have been by miles. You know, it's been a cruise for them for the last decade. So, you know, they're going to pick players. But I think that's another thing that needs to change in culture and in society now, is that, and you used Andy Robertson, great example, got let go by Celtic, quote unquote, the biggest club that has been in Scotland for the last 10 years. And, you know, look at what he's made of his career. I think parents need to understand too, just because your kid's not at Rangers and Celtic when he's 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, it's not the end all and be all. You can go to Hearts, you can go to a Queen's Park, you can go to a Livingston, who have had a very good track record, a Dundee United, of bringing through youth players, you know, in the last 10 years. And I think that with society these days, and we talked about this, you know, social media and stuff last week on the first episode, but you don't need to just go to the main people all the time. You can go to a smaller club, and sometimes that's what certain people need. Some people don't fit into a big club right away. That's not the best place for them. And Matthew, we've seen that throughout our time in California, where, you know, some kids blossom a bit later than other kids. And the kids that are the best kids at 9, 10, 11, 12 are not always the best kids at 16, 17. In fact, they're very few and far between are still the best kids at 16 and 17. So you just need to go to somewhere that suits you as a person, as a player, and can help you grow and develop. And it doesn't need to be one of the big clubs at all. You could go where you want.
I've heard a story of one of my dad's friends. His son's he's like 10 years old, playing for Rangers as a youth lad, and he got told, you can't play for your boys' club. You're only playing football for Rangers. We don't want you training during the week. We don't want you playing games during the week. You train on a Monday and a Wednesday, you play Saturday, and that's it. I mean, how's that for developing players? In fact, sure, you want kids playing as much football as possible, playing as many games, getting as competitive, playing football all the time.
Not just that, Scott. I think the main thing at that age as well is enjoying it and playing with your friends, which I think is massively overlooked.
Yeah, I mean, Greg, we grew up obviously just playing for North Berwick, our local team, and it was just with our pals right the way through from the age of 5, 6 to 19 years old. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, but we would also go down the village hall and kick the ball off the windows, to be honest, every day, which is surely just as productive sometimes as actually going to like our training just because we obviously were into it. Like every day in the summer, we would go down to Miracle or the pitches down the bottom and play football. That's literally all we did for 5-6 years. Every single summer, every single day after school, every single Friday after school. It's just what we did, which surely that has more benefit to your development, is what Scotty says when the kid that's at Rangers is told he can only play Monday, Wednesdays, game on Saturday. Surely kids will catch up with him.
I think this, just to link in, just to try and link this, Josh, I think it's one full circle here, is when you asked me the question about the whole pay to play and if we're, missing something to try to develop our youth system, I think the pay to play isn't the answer. I think that actually would not be good for the country. I think what we're missing is a scouting system where we notice these players, because there's clearly talent here. I think there is, but I think they're lost, possibly from not being noticed and not being scouted. And then when it gets to the point where it's too late, then they get lost in the culture. And they get lost in the culture of drinking with their friends or whatever. And then once you're there, you're pretty much done for. So I think if we try link all this, I think there's talent here, and I think the process of finding that talent and picking it and putting them in the right environment is the key to all this, and then not losing them in the culture that we create. Typical Scottish culture.
Yeah, the Scottish culture 100% is, go out, get pissed with your pals at the weekend, at the recce or whatever it is, and that's fine. And we just need to teach kids that if you want to make it to a certain level, like you're saying, you need to avoid that, and you need to make some sacrifices. And I mean, I couldn't agree any more with what you just said. Uncle Glyn, was it from when you were growing up? Was it the same thing? Was it always, a lot of good players that kind of got taken away by the culture of Scotland? Because
the formative years are probably between 15 and 18, and you even see it through youth football now, and it was the same way back when I was 15, 16, 17. There's a natural falling away of boys and girls that play football, and some of them just go because it's natural. They go on and they find something else in life. But there is so many that drop through that net that shouldn't. And that's what I think. If we could plug that drain of talent and nurture it a bit more through the proper scouting system, as Bobby's just said, and so on and so forth, and keep these kids interested in playing football. That's what it is. They're not kids, because by that time, 15, 16, 17, they're making decisions in life. And Ali McCoist was on Talk Sport today, and he was saying when he was at the Rangers, even then, he just said, look, the scouts would go along and they'd speak to the mums and dads, and it would be this promises of some, you're a superstar before you know it. No, it's a lot of hard work. And the fact that only about 10% that are picked up by the senior clubs go on and make the grade. Now, that's all right saying make the grade, but making what grade? It's wham's the other 90%. I'll bet you the money that if you could stick another 50% of those and keep them in the system and let them develop, they could develop them by the time they're 21, 22, 23. That's, I think, we miss an awful lot of that.
Yeah, 100%. We give up these days on players by the time they're 17, 18 years old. And, that's just ridiculous. There's so few are world-class players, or, whatever you want to call it at that age. It's far and few in between. It doesn't happen. And again, that comes down to culture now, where people thinking they need to have that, at that age, and if they don't have it by that age, and it's not going to happen. It's all right if you get released at 17 by Rangers and Celtic. Keep working, go to a lower league team, start at 18 years old. And again, we use the example, but Andy Robertson, you never know what will happen when you're 22, 23 years old. You don't know where your journey is going to take you. It's spot on. The kind of final thing I wanted to ask you guys about, on that note, what we're kind of talking about, to bring it all together, what do we expect from a Scottish player? What do we expect from a Scottish manager, whether that be at national level or at youth level? I'll start with you, Scotty. Like, what would you expect? What do you want to see from a Scottish player? Is it technical ability? Is it to be physical? Is it a mixture? And also, what do you kind of want to see from
a national Scottish manager.
I want to see that Euros trophy back home and I want to see.
Let's get real now.
Like what Matthew's saying there about like the scouting system and finding players, but right now, what are we looking for? What is that Scottish identity? What is the Scottish DNA? Because you hear so many players getting released from Rangers, Celtic, Hibs because they're not good enough. But what, like, how's John McGinn? How's Andy Robertson? How have they then come through later on? Like, what are they looking for? What is the Scottish identity? That's what we need to figure out first.
I would like to just add on that point. Now, we've kind of been speaking about it, and I've thought about it before, is if you actually look at our team, I think a lot of our success right now is potentially due to a lot of our players are playing consistently in the Premier League. Now, I don't mean like they're playing on the bench for Villa, or they're starting in teams and they're consistently playing and doing well. You look at Stuart Armstrong, he's one of Southampton's best players right now. Robertson, Liverpool, Tierney, Arteta likes him, that says a lot. Ryan Fraser is at Newcastle, he's starting to get a game now. And I think I would just like to add into there, I think a reason that we are doing really well right now is also because of that. And then it begs the question of, to try and play devil's advocate, is are we trying to send our players to England and have them play at that higher level consistently, or are we going to try to keep them at Rangers and Celtic or whatever it is and kind of go that way? I personally think a blend is nice. That's why we got the likes of Ryan Jack in there, Christie, McGregor, and I think that's why it's kind of nicely come together.
But then you look at the two best players. It's not John McGinn and Andy Robertson. They're truly two of Scotland's best players, and they've gone.
McGinn as well, so I forgot McGinn.
Yeah, Andy Robertson got left out of the Scottish system, went away, worked his way up down in England. Now he comes back, world class player. He didn't get made a world class player through Scotland, did he? Or was it doing the hard work at Queen's Park, doing the dirty hours that then made him a Scotland player? Or was it? Then when did he become Andy Robertson? Like,
if you look at McGinn as well, McGinn had the chance to go to Celtic, and did he not choose to go? Was it Villa in the Championship he went to go chose to play for?
Yeah,
and it seems like it seems like best probably decision he's ever done, the way that's turned out. So,
what do you think, Greggy? What do you expect from a Scottish player and the Scottish manager? Like, what would you like to see?
I mean, I think it's tough. It depends. It depends probably what stage you're at. Exactly as the boys say, it is probably. I don't know if it's a coincidence, but exactly the point that Matthew made. A lot of these boys that have came up that are now good and playing in Scotland are playing down in England. But like the alternative to that is, Matthew, is that like Stuart Armstrong didn't even get on the pitch on Thursday night.
Didn't play either.
Which so obviously Steve Clark, for example, obviously sees something between Callum McGregor and Ryan Christie playing at Celtic together, which he thinks fits better than bringing in Stuart Armstrong to the mix there. So I don't know if maybe he thinks because they play at club level together or what his thoughts are behind that.
I think it's the formation. I think it's the formation that maybe doesn't suit Stuart Armstrong as much. But
good attacking to play for Scotland. He's too good a player.
So why do you think he brings on? Why do you think he brings on McBurney and Cal Patterson over Stuart Armstrong and Griffiths, for example?
Because I think
up the pitch, they're tall man.
I think he was trying to get them on to hold the ball up and allow us some breathing room and get us up, and it didn't really seem to click. But I think personally that's why I did think it was quite strange subs though.
Yeah, but in terms of the actual question, Canon, in terms of not so much a player, but to go to like a Scottish manager, I just like to see someone that, like, to be fair to what Steve Clark's done, he understands what he's got, he understands what we can do, and he builds a team around that. And exactly as you say, the team have bought into that. Even typical Scotland, always negative. We're still winning games, 6-7 games in a row at the time, and people are still being negative towards the team, which, I mean, what chance has the guy got? That must just be the Scottish mentality of just being negative all the time. But
fair play.
I'd rather win games quite scrappy than fair enough, knock the ball about and it look quite good and get studded 3-0 every game.
What he's changed the culture in that first team. How well did the players speak about Stevie Clark, and how buzzing were they? Obviously, you won, you're going to be buzzing, but even before then, they spoke so highly of Stevie Clark. The dressing room was great. Apparently, having loads of fun. That's what you want, surely.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with what Scott's saying there. And just in summing that up, it's great that we've got the likes of Stuart Armstrong, who I think is a great player. We've got a bit of strength and depth, but most importantly, we've got a squad who, to go back to your very first point at the start of the podcast, you were saying, where do we really want to go? Well, where we go long term, 10 years from now, who knows? We can build on that. But one thing that Steve Clark has done, he knows exactly where he wants to go, and he's got every single player in that squad buying into that. How he does his substitutions, I didn't agree. I think we've talked about that before. How he did his substitutions, I didn't agree with. We got away with it. But really, over the last 22 years, there's been a general apathy. And from the fans to Scotland, oh, these players don't care. Well, the proof of the pudding was there when we saw what we qualified. These players cared all right, and that meant a hell of a lot to me. You know, just thinking that meant a hell of a lot. And I think,
the manager.
So what you want, the first thing you want from a player is you want attitude. You want to play for your country. The manager wants to manage the country and really, really take it on. And how he does it, and if he gets result, I really don't care if we just scrape through 1-0 or on penalties. We're there at the minute. But looking further down the line, that's something massively to build on, surely.
Yeah, totally. I think ultimately, certainly at that level, what you need to do is win and build belief, not only in the players, but also in the fans. And at the end of the day, you could feel that we all watched that game. I say we, I mean as a nation. There was a real positivity going into that game that we could do this. And I really think that just quite simply comes down to the fact that we were on, a 9-game winning streak, before that game, or an 8-game winning streak before that game. It comes down to that. Regardless of, you can slag off Steve Clark however you want, with how he plays or whatever, and we all like to see our teams and our countries play this amazing football to watch, but ultimately winning builds belief. And if you don't win, you're not going to get the belief of the players, and you're not going to get, most importantly, the belief of the fans. And when you get a fan base at the Tartan Army behind you through winning games, it's absolutely massive. And I just hope that, fingers crossed, I don't know if it'll happen. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I just hope that people are able to be there at the Euros in the summer and support the team in the games and be in the stadium, because Scotland have got a lot to offer, in terms of the energy that they bring to a tournament, regardless of if we crash out and lose every game in the group or we do well. So
just take a week off.
Aye, exactly.
Just take the week off. The Germans will be here for the month, but we'll take the week.
We'll take the week.
The old five Tartan Army, they'll even be something that'll be Yahoo sir, Uncle Bevy.
Brilliant. Well,
yes sir, I can boogie. It'll be hey sir, Uncle Bevy. I'll have a few there.
Brilliant, absolutely. Hopefully we get to do it well. I think that's about everything I kind of wanted to cover tonight, guys. So I appreciate you doing that with
Josh, can I just say something real quick? Me and my pals have booked down, this is for all the listeners, me and my pals have already booked our trip down to London, so if anyone would like to join in, give a wee DM and we'll get a wee Tartan Army team on the go.
Oh,
Matthew's let the early found fame go to his head.
Yeah, the fame has gone to his head early doors after recorded one episode, and he's got a few likes on Instagram. To his head. It is gone. It has. Listen, Uncle Glyn, I appreciate you coming on to join us with that. I thought it would be good to get your perspective on it, because obviously you've witnessed Scotland at stage as well. So, what's that?
I'm an old bastard. Thank you.
There you go. I didn't want to be the one to say it. But that was good again, guys. For everyone that checks this out, again, we appreciate it. And if you could like it and subscribe to it and share it, I'll post it all on Instagram. I think I'm going to make just a Instagram page only for this podcast and share it on both my own Instagram and that Instagram for a little while. So if you could give that a follow when I get it set up, that would be great. But again, appreciate you guys doing this with me again. It was good fun, boys.
Cheers, team.
No worries, Coach.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great
No
job.
worries. Cheers, Uncle Glenn.
Cheers.
Thank you.
See ya.
See ya.